in the Web 2.0 world, I think there's a split really. I think, you know, most of that generation, or a lot of that generation, you know, are very curious and will spend a lot of time searching out new things and, you know, looking at taking recommendations for friends. But at the same time, they do have their destination sites. And I think what we're beginning to see is the kind of recreation of the kind of almost like portals that people talked about, you know, 10 years ago. So, for example, Bebo have obviously commissioned quite a lot of video content in the UK, and Facebook potentially could be an absolutely huge distributor of video. And I think ultimately it's, for the next few years, certainly in terms of online video, you've got to go to where people are. And I think, you know, obviously that generation is hanging out on these social networking sites, and they see, you know, the video and the experience around video, and also the kind of community elements that kind of can be bolted onto video as core to that.
I believe that we make it much too easy in our minds if we say who's the next player in that space, because we have to define that space. I believe that there will be different players for the different parts of what you just asked for. Let's say EPG-based advertisement. I think this space is big enough to deserve an own player and specialization on that. What needs to be displayed inside the electronic program guide? And I personally believe it to be close to banner advertising, but maybe not exactly banner advertising, which is on the EPG when you put it up to your screen. And I believe there will be different players that will play a role in targeted VOD-oriented advertisement. Because pre-roll, and as funny as it sounds, but we do have indications that post-roll works also, which is kind of strange if you think that, you know, this is a VOD after all, people may leave it. But yeah, pre-roll and post-roll may be an advertising class in its own, and it may deserve a specialized player. And maybe the original players we know from linear TV, well, people don't change their habits so easily. Why wouldn't linear TV, with intermission breaks and all these things, may still exist and go forward with, maybe with the established player base? So basically, I think it needs a more elaborate answer to your question. I believe there will be different players, and certainly not one dominating that new advertising space.
One way that visual networking may be monetized would be through advertising. Another way might be building on top of the VOD business models that we see. What about, is the consumer going to pay out of pocket for these services and features that we call visual networking? Of course, we probably all have different ideas of what the implementation of visual networking is. I mean, maybe it's talking into our televisions and seeing our friends and family. Maybe it's receiving updates about Joe is now watching XYZ or recommends these 5 shows. But how, until it's a package deal with our current bundled service through our video provider, are we as consumers going to pay incremental fees for this functionality?
May I answer that very briefly? We just introduced the top 10 most watched list based on PVR data, so you can see what other people were watching. We have some recommendation functions already working, and we charge €5 a month from people in Germany since 2003.
Are they paying?
Yes, sure. Otherwise, I mean, would I be here? Is that a brief and simple answer?
Yes.
I think that also we're talking on visual networking as mostly entertainment today, but what about consumer telepresence or health presence, where you could have a high-definition connection, you know, and speak, and just like today you do with video chatting Skype that sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. What if you could have a real good experience? People have proven time and time again that they're willing to pay for communications, and they prefer more of an advertised model for entertainment, unless there's a movie or something that requires their full attention. So I think there's going to be a combination of both models. I think people also will pay for quality connections, and service providers should be able to monetize on that as well.
Consumers aren't prepared really to pay for a great deal on the internet, but they're quite happy to pay subscriptions for digital TV services. So I think in terms of monetizing stuff on the internet, yes, it will be about advertising, and I think possibly in the future you're going to see a lot of, you know, some of the things that have already been mentioned, you know, the kind of pre-rolls and the kind of contextual-based advertising. But I think one thing we see a lot more of is product placement, you know, that kind of stuff coming through from Hollywood, and companies again like Bebo are doing a lot of this, you know, on the kind of stuff they're doing at the moment. So, you know, I would look to the social networking sites. I think we'll make quite a lot of money out of this. In terms of television, there's a huge challenge. I mean, yesterday, Sony, for example, announced that 90% of its home products are going to have wireless built in, and that obviously includes a lot of TVs. Now, what does that mean? You know, are there going to be browsers built in? What kind of services are they going to offer? And this is a massive opportunity, I think, for broadcasters. Ironically, I think broadcasters in Europe at the moment have many other bigger fish to fry at the moment, and this might not be a priority, but surely if you can take internet-type services to an environment where people are more likely to pay, then there is an opportunity to make revenue kind of beyond advertising. And I think that's where the opportunity lies. But I think it is all down to people coming up with interesting and innovative ideas around television that kind of fits with the kind of more passive way that people actually consume video on their TV, as opposed to the more interactive way they do on their computer.
We have some stats to really prove that this is real, and that's why Cisco is obviously focusing on this area, but in the consumer space and telecommunications. 60% of all internet will be video by 2011, if I can see that well, and we actually, today, 50% of the traffic already in Europe on the internet is already video, today. Now that's streaming, and that's also peer-to-peer, but that's already happening today. And 80% of online consumers use social networking one way or another, so you can only guess when you click one more that the merging of both two will create this new medium visual networking. Feel that this is probably perhaps the real the real thing. When we back in '95 we were thinking of the internet and the impact on entertainment, education. I think visual networking is going to make it.